Hey, what up? It's Max. You're listening to Streaming Cassettes on Wingman of the Year. We got some wonderful people to our left, some guests. Shout out to Mike, our boy Mike Petrano, for this lead. Mike is always in the clutch. He knows people. We're going to probably talk about that in a minute, but he definitely knows people. But we got ourselves Drew and Sarah. They are part of the band Phantom Ocean, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
How you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Yeah, we were talking a little behind the scenes. Things are, for one way or another, in transit, it sounds like.
Yeah, we are, moving and thinking about future moves and all of that. And then, thinking about music and thinking about the music that we already have recorded, the music that we're going to record this year.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think honestly, and we'll talk about this in a little bit in the show, but I think with obviously the pandemic, it's made people have like a sense of like maybe refocusing, like, okay, what do I want in life? Where do I see myself? And I think it's kind of, it's like it's rejuvenating. Like it's good. It's good to have these like thoughts and like POV of like, listen, what the hell do I actually fucking want?
Yeah, it's so easy to just be like move, and not ever stop to take a break. And that's not the way that life, I feel like, is supposed to work. You're supposed to have, and we're trained to think that, if you're sitting idle, you're not productive, but you need that idle time for something to grow.
Right. No, I think that's a great point.
And you need that idle time to think. And that's kind of what happened with Phantom Ocean was we started before the pandemic, actually, right before the pandemic. We were like, you know what? This is a thing. And so actually, I'm just going to tell, the short version of the story, which is...
Yeah, that was my first question. So dive into it. What's kind of the backstory on Phantom Ocean and that whole concept?
So the backstory is that we were friends before we got together as a couple. We've been married for... going on a year now. Our anniversary is Halloween.
Awesome.
And we met, and I knew she was a singer. I hadn't realized that she was a drummer as well.
That's awesome.
And then we were, sitting around, and I'm like, I would be great to play music with you. And it's always a little weird when you're playing with, your significant other. Or it's not always weird. I shouldn't say that. It can get weird if you're not willing to criticize each other and if you're not willing to push each other and help each other grow. And then we went and saw friends of ours play When Particles Collide. I don't know if you know that band out of Maine.
Okay, no, but that's awesome. That's a cool name.
Yeah, it's a cool name. They're phenomenal people. They're amazing musicians. Sasha and Chris are great, and they're also married.
Okay, I see.
And so after both of us had experiences of bands that we were involved in where like somebody's significant other was involved and it got really messy, we were like, oh, this is a nice positive example of, being in a band with somebody that you love and it not turning into,
hot smoking garbage.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, cool. We're going to form Phantom Ocean. It's going to be great. We're going to, record like a demo and then start playing. Our plan was to start playing around like, the Boston club scene. And then March 2020 happened.
Yeah.
And okay, I mean, I have another band. It's called Hidden Knives, and we're not dead. We're just inactive because my drummer lives in Providence and we need to find another bass player. But I mean, he lives in Providence. He lives in an entirely different state. We can't go lock ourselves in a practice room. So that band has had to kind of be on hold. And so we started playing together more and more, and just literally, all right, we're here. We live together. It's not like we have to schedule this practice with anybody else. It's not like we have to navigate a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just jam. And so we did, and it started rolling, and we played like one or two virtual shows, but it was mostly just us making music together and enjoying that.
That's awesome. I mean, that it brings up a good point. You're in a spot like the world is restricting what you can do, but yeah, you have this great relationship, and it also sounds like it's really deeply connected in music. So it doesn't hurt to give it a try, you know. And then the fact that it's produced to actually a full-fledged thing, like that's really cool.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
hear that
very-
often. I mean, you hear like, you know, sure, like the most famous was like, you know, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, like a thing, but like, you know, there's a lot of that's not really commonplace in music as much.
Yeah, and usually you hear them like, and it's always a messy story. It's never like, oh, here's these two people and they have this great musical connection, and also they get along great. It's always like Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that,
like,
that for sure.
oh no, please stay out of the same room when you don't have a guitar in your hands.
Yeah, that can get pretty
Or-
toxic quick.
Or like the one that I feel like we're probably gonna end up drawing a lot is people go, oh, like the White Stripes.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what? Yeah, I love the White Stripes, so sure, if you want to go there, let's go there.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
right. Yeah, that's another one for sure. And so like with that, has that kind of affected some of the songwriting process that you guys have thought about for different songs you guys have?
What do you mean? The fact that we're together, or the fact that we've been kind of
Yeah, kind of being married, like wordy, is that kind of reflected in any of your song work, or is it just stuff that's totally unrelated to like that at all? I didn't know that was any sort of like inspired or in the process or
Mostly unrelated.
yeah, I'd say
Mostly unrelated.
yeah,
Mostly,
I'd say
okay.
mostly unrelated.
yeah. You know, because sometimes people when they write, I can, you know, some people write very personal, and then sometimes it's very out almost like a different point of view on purpose because it's like they're trying to like tell a different story. So I was curious what that approach was for you two.
I think one of the better analogies I've ever heard is everybody puts, you know, their influences and story they want to tell into a blender, like in every kind of creative endeavor.
Mhm.
And it's just what level you set the blender to. So like if it's 1, you might have to call somebody and like apologize after they hear the song, like, look, I'm really sorry, I was really mad when I wrote that. Which is a lot of what I did in previous bands. There was a joke with a former bandmate that we were just going to name an album. It was just going to be 10 more people that pissed off Drew. And I was like, jokes on everybody, because like 5 of those people are me.
Yeah.
5 of those are literally just me staring in a mirror going, hey, fuck you, to myself.
I get that.
And now I'd say it's probably more at like, I'd say probably like a 5 or 6 on that. Like, I mean, to give you an example, on our upcoming EP, we have, you know, an old folk blues standard that we've done a little bit of, you know, updating to and funkiness to. We've got blues songs about urban legends. We've got some more like surfy punk songs about various other things. Go ahead. I know you want to.
I just keep writing songs like I am a violent sociopath. Our first single is "Notice Me, Senpai"
Yep.
by yours truly.
Yeah.
All of I don't know. There's a couple strings not quite tied together upstairs, so I love serial killers and violence. I got 2 entire encyclopedias of serial killers.
It's a fascinating thing. My wife's kind of into like she's in the serial killer like documentaries on Netflix, and then she's also really into like prisons, like watch like the Russian prisons and stuff. She like fucks with that. It's great.
I get caught up on cannibals. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just like, what? There's not been a song related to cannibals yet.
Yeah.
I also find serial killers very fascinating. I actually wanted to go to college for psychology specifically because that whole thing fascinates me, and I just didn't. We're actually working our way right now through, there's a new Son of Sam documentary.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw like either previews or some snippet, you know, scrolling through like Instagram or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Sons of Sam. It's inspired by a book that was written by a journalist named Maury Terry, who chases down the theory that essentially David Berkowitz did not act alone. Which, in my opinion, is a pretty solid theory, actually. Yeah. But I'm fascinated by it. She's the one who writes the songs about it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a thing itself, to take that interest and be like, okay, how do you make this into something that's like, you know, a song, like, hey, we can sing about it, and like melodic structure, and that's definitely its own skill in its own right. Is that so? That was kind of I was going to ask that. What was that kind of the influence on the track? Notice Me Senpai?
Yeah, I don't even. It was a joke. We were driving and it was a joke, and then I just got really into, because the traditional idea of senpai.
I just remembered what the joke was too.
I don't even know.
I'll tell you in a minute. Continue.
I got the brain of a bird. I don't remember. But the traditional idea of senpai being the older classman and yandere being the young girl obsessed with older classmen.
Okay, yep.
And it gets funky. I watched a lot of YouTube videos of the yandere simulator when that was a big thing. Of which you can do many a violent thing to your classmates.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah, okay. Yes. I remember that was like kind of a thing.
And I was we made the joke, and I was thinking about it, and I was just so into it.
Doing some research on said joke, I assume here.
No, I'm pulling up. I remember the exact video. Have you ever seen the video of the dude who, like, he's a professional filmmaker. He's done a bunch of music videos. It's something Bowser. And it's like weird Satanist guy, weird Arby's guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the dude's first name, and I feel bad because I really enjoy it's so bizarre and surreal.
But he was talking about the statue in Detroit, and at the end it's "Notice me, senpai, notice me."
And it just
right, yeah, the one that's like holding the
Yes.
Yeah, and you said it, and I was like, where the hell did that come from? Clicked. Oh, right, that's where that joke came from.
From that video.
Yeah.
And then it spiraled out of control because I watched,
because that's
many
what
hours
in-jokes do with us.
I watched many hours of the yandere simulator, and I was like, yeah, no, cutting off fingers sounds about right.
Gotcha. So okay, because when I listened to the song, it was like this.
I've still got all 10.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there was like this playful back and forthness, but that makes sense now.
Yeah, no, it's all just one psychotic, horrible child.
And do you think that's going to carry into the rest of, so I know let's talk about that. So I know we talked beforehand that you have an EP coming out in September for Phantom Ocean. Is it going to be more eclectic on the different song structures, or is that kind of a vibe of what people may expect from the project?
It's definitely eclectic. We've got
it kind of, I was going to say, it kind of bounces back and forth between two kind of mainstreams that we mine, and one is a little bit faster, that kind of like, alt rock, surfy kind of vibe, kind of like Notice Me Senpai, and then a lot more I'm a huge, just gigantic fan of like Hill Country Blues, what some folks refer to as deep blues, which is supposed to like the traditional, Chicago blues, which is more built around 12-bar structure. Well, I say that and I realize that I have several songs that are 12-bar blues. Or like Texas blues, which is much more like flashy.
Okay,
Hill Country Blues is very hypnotic. It's very much about like the riff and the drone and kind of repeating figures and having this kind of hypnotic quality to it. And I've got a bunch of good friends from bands that I've known since basically I started playing in Boston, who got me hooked on that real early on when I started playing, and I just, when I had some time off between bands, I really got into playing that style of music. I got very into playing slide guitar. And so there's a lot of that mixed with that kind of frenetic punk energy.
I have a very strong attachment to surf punk and Riot Girl, because I was in a self-proclaimed Riot Girl band for a little bit.
Okay, nice, awesome.
Because at first it was out of the kitchen, and then it was just okay. It was confusing. It was fun. We made a song about Yoko Ono being a Yeti on the tundra eating people.
That's like a
theme going
that might be the theme of the shows, the Yoko Ono checks.
I know you said Yoko Ono, was like, oh my god, that's right.
As soon as Drew name checks her, we're like full circle.
I like that everyone thinks I'm the weird one.
Yeah, I know. They're like, wow, Drew, you have an anger problem.
Like,
hi.
So okay, so maybe I'll tie it. Oh, no, you guys are good. So let me tie into this, since you were talking about your interest in like the blues, but also like adding this like punk element based on maybe previous stuff. What kind of got you both into music? What sort of got you to that point?
So I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so you know, we've got just
Lord and Savior.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I make this joke, and then I have a literal candle of Bruce Springsteen, like a votive, like devotional prayer candle of Bruce Springsteen.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah. I will show it to you afterwards.
Perfect.
Yeah, because it's in the other room. But yeah, I mean, I grew up on, Springsteen, and then a ton of classic rock. Like, I mean, Tom Petty was always on around my family. Creedence, Queen. Queen was, one of my favorite bands since probably as long as I can remember. It's one of those where I'm like, how do I not have a Queen tattoo somewhere? Zeppelin. I love Zeppelin. And then I got super into, punk, the Misfits back when they were good. Yeah, I mean, I know people will be like, oh, that's not the cool answer. Like, Nirvana, Green Day, things like that. I'm that vintage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're classic though.
I was gonna say also, like, Nirvana and Green Day are like untouchable in terms of how good they are. Soundgarden, all of those bands. Like, I got into everything that was coming on the radio when I was a kid. And then, like I said, I got older, I started being in bands, so I started hanging around all the, weird local bands that I was playing shows with, and so they all fed into it. And then, a big part of it was, I joked one day that, last week after we finished recording the EP with our engineer, I'm like, yeah, the theme of this entire EP is less. Like, less complicated guitar parts, less arrangements, less distortion. Like, it's kind of beautiful, actually.
Sometimes simple is really what, it's effective. It kind of gets your message across.
Yeah. And I mean, you have less stuff to hide behind.
Right.
I plugged into, I used 2 amps on this entire thing, and I'm like, these are just such good amps though. So, like, why do I need, a distortion pedal on it? I just have this amp.
Right. I mean, that's how it all started, honestly, with different artists. And especially because I think that's an interesting tie-in too. And I don't know if you meant it intentionally or not, but like, being that you do blues, like blues was very much like instrument, like you're if you either you can play your instrument or you can't. Like, it's not, I mean, not that I'm an expert in blues, I'm not gonna ever try to bullshit that one, but like, I definitely know that's kind of where that whole universe started.
Yeah, it's you can do it or you can't. Although I will say that I'm not super into like blues purism, where you get people that are like, no, it needs to be, plug this guitar directly into, that amp with nothing in between but a chord. And I'm like, Nah, like there's plenty of psychedelic blues artists that I know. There's a very good friend of mine, a guy that I'm blessed and lucky to know. One of the guys who has gotten me into so much music is our friend Ted Drozdowski, who's in a band called Coyote Motel down in Nashville, Tennessee,
Mhm.
and he plays like psychedelic, like cosmic roots music. And I'm like, his guitar setup is insane, and yet he's one of the most soulful players I've ever met. Like, this man can take you on a journey with just the guitar and his voice, or with his full band. And I'm like, we compare notes on like our setups, and I'm just like, that's so many pedals, and you work them all so well. And I'm over here like, it's like, oh man, 4 pedals. That's and stay trapped and stay locked like it was, in Chicago in 1959.
Right. No, wow. That's a good point. I may have lost a little bit of that just because it was a little touch and go, but I got most of what you said.
Okay.
So, but my apologies. I was definitely
No
present. So,
no worries.
how?
No, I know how it goes with Zoom.
Yeah,
Trust me.
right. The bane of our existence in the last 14 months or so. But how about for you, Sarah? What's kind of your inspiration that got you in the music?
The short story is I was pooped out of the womb, and there we go.
Okay.
What a
Because
phrase.
my mom actually, when she moved out from her parents at like 19, worked at the local dinner theater basically until like she was in school to get her degree. But because she took a break when she was pregnant with my oldest brother and then my other older brother and me, but she would always come back. So I got a lot of babysitting in the dinner theater area.
Okay. Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time there. And then my dad was obsessed with classic rock. He loved playing guitars. I get vivid memories when different like Fleetwood Mac and Boston, all the good classics come on, of just like arriving to vacation because we are crazy and we would drive to Florida. So I have a lot of that. And then like my grandma was an opera singer. My great grandfather was a swing band leader. I have a lot of lines of music.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds it.
We don't have the full kit because we're still repairing it, but her kit is actually her great grandfather's swing band kit.
Was this practice?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
1950s Ludwig and Slingerland Radio King.
Wow. That's so cool. I mean, that's awesome that you can keep something like that, like you said, in working condition through the family. Wow. And like having that genetic line of people that are like, in a creative mind frame, musically, theater.
Yeah. And then for me, mine just kind of sprang up. Like my parents weren't musicians, and then suddenly, here I am. And I picked it up relatively late in life, actually. I didn't seriously touch a guitar until I was in my 20s.
Meanwhile, my mother harmonized with both of her babies, and I'm this weird super baby that just finishes phrases from the crib.
Sometimes you just some people just have it right from the jump. That's honestly a thing.
I started playing guitar in my 20s at a point in my life where I was couch surfing, living with, in the good graces of friends, which is essentially a nice way of saying I was homeless. After oh no, it's hilarious now. After a really, really, really bad breakup with a partner. And it had just kind of crushed the life out of me. And a guy that I was staying with, who I'll always owe this debt to, one day just kind of turned around. We were like in his living room and went, hang on. And he walked in the other room and he, pulled out a pair of guitars and he just kind of showed me a couple chords and he was like, all right, well, there you go. Now you know how to play guitar, I guess. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that years on, I'm pretty sure I still don't actually know how to play guitar, but I fake it really well.
There you go. I mean, you picked it up, seems like rather quickly though.
There's always that like year of fumbling, or maybe everybody else gets it in 6 months and I'm just a slow learner. Also didn't help that I maimed my index finger the first year that I was playing.
Yeah, that wouldn't help much.
Yeah. I also bartended, and every bartender has a knife accident at some point.
Yeah, I can imagine slicing a little lime.
Yep. The immortal words. Mr. Smith, if you told us you had cut off the tip of your finger, we would have seen you a lot quicker.
Gotta love it. But let's talk about this. Kind of mix it up. So obviously, we talked before the show, you're kind of, in transit, looking at different things, but it sounds like you both have kind of a real strong, you were saying New Jersey, but you have a strong presence in like the Massachusetts, Boston area. How's your involvement kind of in the music scene at large in like New England and in that region?
I mean, right now, only now coming back because New England's music scene shut down pretty much entirely except for virtual gigs, obviously with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I said to somebody that if you told me in 2019 that in 2021 I'd be excited that we had like 3 summer gigs booked, I'd have looked at you like you were crazy. And if somebody told me in 2020 that I was gonna have 3 summer gigs booked, I would have looked at them like they were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's 2021 and I've got 3 summer gigs booked and I'm ecstatic. It's nice. It's going to be great to see my friends, see our friends, play some rock and roll, and get to hang out with people. We're lucky and we're very blessed that New England has a really good music scene, with not just places up in Vermont, but places in Maine that we can play. Wonderful. Currently, it's a virtual venue because they're in transit between physical locations, but Once in Somerville runs a great virtual venue. The Providence music scene is super strong. New Hampshire's got a bunch of places to play. It's very nice. And, I've been lucky enough to not only make a lot of lifelong friends from playing music in New England, but, meet her. That's actually how we met.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. She was running merch for another band at a show that I played, and I was just like, oh, who's that?
I wore lace-fronted pants and stepped on a man who had a board of nails on top of him.
Oh, yeah, that was the show with the freak show.
They had to get 3 other people on because I was too small to push the nails down.
That's a first impression.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so I've been very lucky. I've been very blessed. I could literally sit here and rattle off all the bands that I really like and admire in other bands that I apologize to all the other bands, and I'm completely blanking on some of the other names. I know Slow Coyote's playing that one, who I've played with before, and both those bands are a blast. We've got a show in Providence on June 13th with Linnea's Garden and Heather Rose and Clover, and that's going to be super fun, and there's so many talented bands, especially in Boston, but all over New England, where it's like, yeah, you can't throw a stone without bouncing it off 3 talented musicians that you want to hang out with.
That's awesome. Just like to have that community,
Oh yeah. And like everybody that I hang out with is super supportive of each other. Like I like that. I was saying to a friend recently that I think my favorite thing if one can have a favorite thing about the pandemic and shows being on pause, is that with them coming back, everyone's super excited. Everyone's really positive about it. I haven't heard like word one of like bitterness or anything like that. I'm sure it's out there, but I haven't heard a word of it. So
right,
that's fine by me.
That's good. Like, the gratitude, like the appreciation of like, hey, this is something we took for granted.
Yeah. And also, I just think that going through life with a nice like kind of positive attitude like that. I mean, I believe in positive mental attitude so much that I literally have it tattooed on my body.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Along with a little David Lynch reference.
Nice.
Blue Rose. But yeah, I mean, like I believe in that very strongly.
Mhm.
But and to see everybody else just being like, like I've watched friends of mine have shows, like outdoor shows that they announced and they sold out within a day. And I turned around, I'm like, I'm gonna go get to
Just kidding.
okay, cool. I guess I'm not going to that show. I'm just gonna, applaud you for having a sellout show your first show back.
Holy shit, that's great. I mean, Buzzkill, you couldn't go, but great that they had that, like.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That makes me kind of bring up this point too is because you have live shows coming back, because you've been in both you've been in different projects, music stuff. Is there any like live live show memories or anything like stories of the road that you have that really stick to mind that's really funny? Or interesting even. Doesn't have to just be haha, but
oh man. I mean, so my old band was on the road. I want to say in 3 years we did like 180 shows.
Holy cow. Okay. Yep.
It's one of those, I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that's a lot. And then I look at friends of mine who play and they're like, yeah, that was the year we did 224 shows. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was slacking is what I hear from that.
Mm-hmm. It's a match.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that I can think of. I mean, not to say they all blur together, but like the ones that I remember most are not necessarily funny memories, but they're when I've gotten to play with bands that like I just really enjoyed or I really admired. Getting to make friends on the road. Like I was thinking about this the other day because I was talking to a friend of mine in New York City and I was like, oh yeah, we did meet like that very first time at Trash Bar. Huh. It's really been that long. Because, I mean, that bar's long gone,
Right.
It's funny that so many of the gigs that I think of that were amazing and super fun for me were ones that were like right on the edge of disaster. There was a show in Iowa that we played one time in Cedar Rapids where we'd gotten a flat on the way to the gig. We knew the bands we were playing with. And so like we ran on stage. I ran in carrying a guitar and my pedal board. I was in such a rush, I left the other guitar in the car. And my drummer just ran in carrying like his cymbal bag and like a snare because they were just like, you can just use the next band's drums because they were friends of ours. You can just use the next band's amp. If, my friend Josie's band who had, only gotten back together after we'd worked together, tending bar and become friends. And I was like, hey, we should play a show. And it was the end of a tour. We played in Boston and it was just fantastic. And it was wonderful to see, a good friend of mine back in her element after having not done it for a while and just kill it. And I love that. I love any show where I get to play with people who are super talented because it makes me want to go and up my game.
Right, exactly.
Is one of the best shows. We'll say my funniest weird moment was my old band played a show in Ohio one time and the crowd was just dead. Like, not like they weren't there, like there were plenty of people there and there was just no reaction at all between songs. It was like, okay, wow, they really hate the shit out of us, huh? Okay, so we're just gonna keep playing. This is what we do. We're, professionals at this. I'm not gonna be like, clap for me, you bastards, or I'm not playing another song. And then at the end of it, it's like, oh, okay. Half our merch case sold out that night. They paid us out at the bar and they're like, wow, you guys killed it. I'm like, Is it a narcolepsy convention in here?
Ohio people are weird.
Other places in
I
Ohio.
wouldn't know. My mother is from Ohio.
Other places in Ohio have been fantastic. This one bar, and apparently we're not alone. Another band that I played a show with, a touring band, was like, oh yeah, we played that place. And it was weird because they loved us and, we did great, but no one made a peep all night.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I was just like, I feel seen. I'm not alone.
Oh.
Right, like it's not just you.
What's up?
It's not just you that happened that with.
Yeah. And this, I was going to say, and this was a band where they put on a killer live show. They are so much fun. You can't help but enjoy yourself. And I'm just like, okay, cool. It wasn't just an I suck thing. It was, that's the vibe of that club, I guess.
You played so well that their souls left their bodies. The pair just
Right. See, that's the type of reverse psychology you need. Like you were just awe-inspiring.
There was also, let's see, there was the time that we rolled up on a literal barn. Like, oh, what's the name of this place? The Barn? What's it like? I don't know. It's probably a barn or something. Roll up on it in this small town. This is literally a converted barn. All right, cool. And, open up the doors and it's like there's a stage and they've got like a pretty decent PA. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's a converted barn. I take the position that any show that I'm playing is a good one. My favorite is still the show I met you at, though.
And that's because of walking on the nails, right? It has to be.
Oh, clearly. Yes.
I mean, I'm not gonna completely credit your crop top and your pants, but they didn't hurt the issue.
I got beef with the patriarchy and non-see-through pants.
There you go. Why not?
Yeah.
Anything that comes to mind for you, Sarah, with like live or?
I have had a lot less outer playing experiences, but I will say I think two of my favorites are one of my old bands, the Richard Beard Quartet, or Gypsy Jazz 4. It was great. We did a wedding and we all played in fake mustaches, which is funny because two of them had real mustaches, but me and the clarinet player did not. So it was just like, you can borrow one of my fake ones.
Yeah, just slap
and
it
then,
on.
We in Haverhill, they have the Steve Lyons Fest, and they'll have the after show because it's for raising money for like music education. Because the after show is where you can get a little bit nasty. It was Hawaiian shirt themed, so all of my bandmates of OK decided, all right, cool, Hawaiian shirts. I think our lead singer decided to do a little bit of a mermaid look, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna show up in entire shark makeup. Oh my god, I was peeling sweat all just like, oh no.
Yeah, that's a lot if you're doing the whole thing.
If you've ever seen, it's the painted, like the shark girl painting.
Yeah.
I've managed to figure it out. I've done it like 3 times now, but
Wow.
It is very sweaty.
I can imagine. I mean, well, I can't imagine because I've never done it, but I can imagine the struggle of perspiration occurring.
I love me some good stage makeup, like Shark Girl, Harley Quinn, Beetlejuice, you name it, I'll cover myself in it.
Hey, I give people to do like that type of stuff credit. Like when you watch like the videos, like they're like transform. It's like it's wild.
Yeah, and the dedication of committing to it for like if that was your full-time band thing.
I wish.
Commitment. Yeah, you can't get me to commit to that.
I was gonna say
I barely commit to wearing a shirt when I'm playing.
Thank you, sir.
Our cat at the age of 11 is learning the joy of knocking shit over.
Yes, yeah, that I'm sure that definitely happens.
He is not a knocking stuff over cat.
No, he's very, very kind.
Yeah, it's actually very nice.
He is.
Is it more of maybe like a midlife crisis?
Yeah, I think it was just an. Yeah, no. The
No,
closest he gets to a midlife crisis is he jumps up on the kitchen counter and yells at us that he would like fresh water directly from the tap, and then he shoves his whole head under it, and I'm just like,
I love it.
you tried, man. You tried to have dignity.
That's
No,
that's
I
great.
see those people that commit to like full makeup, and I'm just like, I get so sweaty on stage.
Hmm.
Like I'm pouring it out just through every pore, and I'm like, I can't even imagine.
Mm.
I'd be 5 minutes into it, and it would be running like I'm Sting in the mid '90s. Just
Wearing a mask of yourself?
yeah. My favorite bit
Oh
in all
my
of pro
God.
wrestling is
It's Sting!
Sting's obsession with wearing masks of his own face.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. Sorry about that. I heard it like
No
half
worries.
the story, but yeah, I remember that was Sting.
Yeah, just like I'm like
Oh my
I
God.
can't. I would die though if I wore makeup like that. Like I'd be on stage. I'd get stage light turns on. Immediately it all runs down and settles like on my collarbones. I'm just like, yep. Yep.
That's why you got it.
Oh, crazy. So, having a couple questions left. Want to make sure I'm not holding you guys up too long. One
You're
thought
good.
I
It's
have.
Friday night.
Hey, right? That's the perk of doing these on the weekend. You have a little bit of leeway. You're not like stuck to the 9 to 5 as much.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like the music, like just music at large right now, right? Because I feel like the last 18 months have been so transformative, maybe 2 years if you had streaming, which I would, but like between Spotify, you have the pandemic, you have TikTok. What do you feel like we're like when we shoot out of this hole we call COVID, like where is music gonna go? Do you think it's gonna go back to like wanting to see people more live and appreciating that? Do you think it's gonna be more of this like instant gratification train that we're on?
I think it's definitely going to evolve. I mean, certainly already in my case, I've seen it with the show that I have booked in June in Providence, Rhode Island. It's at dusk with Linnea's Garden and Heather Rose and Clover. For the first time ever, I've had people turn around and go, hey, I really want to make sure that I can make it to this show. Can you please give me a pre-sale option? Okay, I've never had to do that in the entire time I've been playing music. Like I've certainly played ticketed shows, but I've never had for like a local level show. I've never had people turn around and go, I want a way to be able to pay you money beforehand to make sure that I get in the door.
Wow.
And that's amazing. I think that live streaming shows is a mixed bag because on the one hand, I do like the special experience of it being, okay, you have to be at X place at 9:00 on a Friday night or a Thursday night or a Monday night or whenever I'm playing, because I don't really care. Any night of the music that I can, or any night of the week that I can, I will play music. Any night of the music I can, I will weep.
Yes.
I'm king
of those screw ups, so it's good.
Oh, I love it. But at the same time, like there's accessibility issues. There are venues that are not accessible for people, who may have a mobility problem. There are, venues, there are folks who, by way of, for instance, might be photosensitive and can't be in a venue with flashing lights. And
right.
I very much believe in the idea of music being a common ground and a common experience for everybody. And so that option is great for people that can't get a sitter, can't get time off, to travel like an hour, maybe live super far away from a venue, but that still want to support music, or that have something that prevents them from going to that venue.
Right.
And then at the same time, it's a thing that I think we realized, especially in and around New England, is that good venues are precious. And I'm sure everyone everywhere realized this, but there are venues that, in Boston, we've absolutely mourned losing because, these are people who supported live original music, who, took chances on new bands, who booked really cool acts, who cared about, the fans and the artists and the shows that were going in, and they put a ton of care into what they did. And if everything suddenly went to, oh, it's fine, I'll stream from, wherever, I'll stream from our practice space, you need those venues, because otherwise at a certain point you're preaching to the choir, and music scenes, I feel like, can't survive if all you're reaching is other bands.
Yeah, right. Like you need a scene to actually make it a presence.
Yeah. And those good venues are, they're invaluable. And there's some club owners and bookers that I have met where I'm just like, I'd go to the mat for any of these people, because they're such good people, and they do such a service. And often it's not, I mean, we recognize that, yeah, this is a cool thing you're doing, but I don't think everybody realizes how much work goes into doing that until it stops and you realize how much you miss it. Like, I haven't been in a club. I can remember exactly the last two shows that we went to before the pandemic. One was, we went up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and we saw Kingfish, Chris Stone Ingram.
Oh my God, I love him.
Oh, he's such a good dude. He's an amazing guitarist, and he's so young and so talented that I stopped and I looked at my hands afterwards, and I'm like, why do I even do this? Like, he's like, dude's a beast, and super nice. And we saw the last show from our friend Linnea's band Power Slut, who is actually, we're playing with her new band Linnea's Garden next month, June 13th in Providence. And we didn't know that it was not just going to be, the last Power Slut show. We didn't know that that was going to be the last show we'd ever see at the Once Ballroom in Somerville, which is one of those amazing venues that I'm talking about, where the owner, JJ, is so dedicated. She loves music. She loves running a music venue. And those sorts of places they're priceless.
They are, yeah.
And that is, I guess, my only worry with live streaming, or my only two worries with live streaming rather, are, one, it becoming this kind of, people wanting it to become this kind of on-demand experience of, I guess I would say, almost the Amazon priming of live music. Like, oh, okay, but I'm not available that Friday. I want it taped, and I want it, I want to be able to watch it, Saturday at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I can see an argument either way, and I haven't really made up my mind on which way I feel about it. And the other one is, okay, there has to be a mechanism in place then to support the venue that is, kind and gracious enough to give you a stage, and all the support things that, we think, oh, it's a stage, and it's like, it's the lights, it's the bartenders, it's the sound system. Stuff breaks on sound systems, stuff breaks on stages, like all of these things where it's like, somebody said to me once, they're like, nobody gets into running a music venue to be rich. And it's very true. And also at the same time, support the artists fairly. Like, I mentioned earlier, our music is not going to be on Spotify. And a big part of that is the cheapening of music. And a big part of that is that Spotify absolutely does not pay artists out fairly. And, I had somebody tell me, they were like, oh, but you need to be on Spotify. And they couldn't answer me the question when I asked why. They just kept going, oh, but you need to be on Spotify.
Right.
I don't need to do anything.
No, I mean, basically, what having a younger brother who does, some music and more electronic stuff. I mean, what you hedge your bet on is that you're getting this mass amount of people, right? And so it's a numbers game. So you hope that if you get enough people to stream, it can compensate to be something decent. But what you were stating earlier, which is a valid point, is that if the margins are so like paper thin to what an artist actually gets as a cut, then you almost have to look at like, okay, is that ethically right? But then, like you said, it's kind of suspicious that a company of that nature, or like, I mean, I have Apple Music. I'm not gonna like act like I'm holier than thou, but like, you know what I mean? Like the thing is that how are these artists, how can they get more? But if they're not making a profit, quote unquote, like there's a gray area. Yeah. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. That's, and I mean, I'm not going to delve into, because I don't know about their bookkeeping, so it would just be me talking out of turn about something I know nothing about.
Yeah,
but,
right. I mean, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know nothing of, what their bookkeeping looks like, but I do know that, I've looked at, Spotify payouts and everything from previous projects I've been involved in, and just, it didn't even require me to crunch the numbers. It just required me to look at them and go, okay, that's not worth it. And maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe there are other people making a very good living off of Spotify, or at least paying for, distribution and everything through Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we're on Bandcamp. Bandcamp pays us out very fairly.
That's great.
Yeah. We get CDs made, or we are going to get CDs made for the upcoming EP, which is Secondhand Ghosts, by the way, is the name of it. And, we sell those, and, I've made, I make fair money on CDs. I make fair money on Bandcamp sales. iTunes pays you out pretty fairly when somebody buys stuff on iTunes. Certainly more fairly than, streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get the argument that streaming services are kind of the new radio. But at the same time, it's for me personally, it's not a game that I'm interested in playing with people.
Right.
Like it's not a game I'm interested in participating in.
Hey, I mean,
yeah.
I think one thing I take away from this conversation, the way you're bringing it up, because it's a different viewpoint you don't hear often, and that's not a bad thing. I think what it is that because it's art, you're in the beholder of like what just like how the art's made, how the art can be viewed or enjoyed or consumed is just as much part of the process.
Yeah. And I mean, I've sat and I've thought about it, and there are certainly, there are so many albums that I love listening to when I'm driving, and then there are certain albums that, we have the vinyl or we have a CD, and, I'll give you a perfect example because it's sitting over there across the room next to our stereo. Angelo Badalamenti did the, if you're familiar with his name, he is a composer. He has done, he's most famous for doing a lot of work with David Lynch, who is my favorite filmmaker. And we have the Twin Peaks score over there.
Yep.
And that album just lives at home because it's not one that I would imagine putting on for like a drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like West Side Story.
Yeah, like we have, West Side Story on vinyl.
I'm an aggressive stan for West Side Story.
I mean, it's a great
Now comes
play.
the hilarious part. How much crossover was there between West Side Story and Twin Peaks? So much.
It was a lot.
So many actors from West Side
really
Story went on to work with David Lynch.
Wow. It's funny you say Twin Peaks is one of the guys, he's taking a break for the time being on the show. His name's RJ, and him and my cousin Sean are obsessed with Twin Peaks. Obsessed.
So good.
Yeah. I've watched, at first when they like told me about it, I'm like, what the hell is it? I had no clue like 5-6 years ago. And then like I watched some of like, different episodes and some of the newer stuff. And I'm like, this is wild. Like just the concept. It's so fascinating.
Did you watch season 3? The Showtime one?
I watched a couple episodes with them when they were living at my place at the time. Yeah.
I need to, go back, start season 3 from the beginning and watch it all the way through. It is wild. He is probably my favorite filmmaker. An initial pitch for Phantom Ocean, in fact, was I initially wanted to pitch it as parentheses possibly David Lynch's favorite blues band.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, because I love that, you know, trippy, psychedelic, like otherworldly vibe, you know, and it
Mhm.
ties into, you know, what we were saying about, you know, Mississippi Hill Country Blues and things like that,
Right.
of that hypnotic quality of it, that otherworldliness. But yeah, like there are albums that you listen to at home, there's things that you listen to when you're out, and I certainly see the application of both of those things.
Mhm.
Like I said, I get the idea of, you know, streaming is there to get you to people, but you know, on that I'd go to the words of another artist that I really admire, Paul Westerberg from The Replacements.
Mhm.
Um, I'd rather play for 50 people who give a shit than 1,000 who don't care.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, I'd rather, you know, I'd rather press 50 CDs and have them all go to people that, you know, really valued that music. You know, you were asking earlier about, you know, best show memories. And I think probably one of my favorite memories from a show was this guy came up to me and my bandmate from an old band that I was in one time. We were in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And he looked at my drummer and he was raving about how good we were. And he's like, you were great, you were great. And then he's like, you were a beast on the drums. And he goes, I need to tell you, and this is an older guy, he's like in his 50s. He goes, I need to tell you, man, that like this just inspired me to go pull my drums out of my garage and tune them up and get back into it.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's really powerful. Like when you allow music to be powerful, it's such a powerful thing. Like all art is. Like I certainly don't want to discount dance, filmmaking, any of that, because all of that, you know, every form of art is very powerful.
Mhm.
If it's honest. And you know, certainly having widespread distribution allows for a chance of that to happen, but it also potentially cheapens it, as people are like, okay, I'm on the streaming station and it's going in the background and I'm not really listening. It's just kind of the white noise hum of my life. And certainly we can't say whether or not a song is going to, you know, reach out and grab you, because I mean, you know, I feel like you and I are of a similar vintage, Max, and you know, there's songs that we heard when we were like 9 that have probably stuck with us forever.
Yeah. Very
I'm
much
sure
so.
everyone of every age can tell that story of, you know, yeah, there was this song. In fact, I know that they can, because Jackie still talks about songs from when she was 19. Her grandmother is 93.
Wow.
And still sharp as a tack. Loves music. And we'll go visit her and she'll talk about music with us all the time. And she still has those songs that resonated with her when she was very young, and she still remembers them. She
That's
remembers
so
every
cool.
word. She remembers every note. But you know, I would always rather reach that smaller number of people who care passionately than, you know, turn the hose on and spray it into the ocean and hope that the current from my hose reaches someone in the ocean.
That's a cool analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah. That, you know, you hear certain ones, you're like, oh yeah, you know, they tales of time. They go through like life and stuff, but that's new. I've never heard that one. That's cool.
Thank you.
So I'll do this since we're kind of at the kind of the tail end of things, but a question we always kind of bring up, and I think it'd be great for both of you to kind of contribute on, is obviously there's artists out there, musicians that are trying to get into music in different ways, especially with like, you know, pandemic, learning something new. What's like 3 to 5, give or take, pieces of advice you give for anyone that's like starting out? Like, what's some sort of tips about like, you want to get into music, you need to know these things?
I'm gonna let you go first, Miss Music Teacher.
Don't be afraid to sound like shit in your own house.
Yep. See, also, you know, I was probably bad
Don't be afraid to sound like shit in front of your music teacher, kids. That we're supposed to teach you how to not sound like shit afterward.
I would say for me, honestly, just kind of, you have to get through the hackney cliches and, building that muscle and building that skill base. And honestly, you're better off just doing it as fast as you possibly can. Like hit fast forward on the awkward period of being a musician. Learn to play in time. It's not a very punk rock answer for me. I'm sorry to say, but timing really is everything. I mean, even in the year and a half that we've been playing together, my timing's improved by leaps and bounds because she'll lock eyes with me and just be like, "You skipped a bar."
Oh, you make me sound so nice.
I believe at one point you yelled at me, you followed me, I am the captain.
Yeah, my mom and I used to be in choir together, and if she was a quarter step down, I'd smack her in the arm.
Yeah.
If you have an idea and you're awake, write it down somewhere. I don't care if it's in your phone, on the back of your cheeseburger wrapper, on the arm of the chair that you're in. Well, maybe not the chairs. Your parents might get mad.
Let's see. Play with people who are better than you. You will always learn much more from people who are as good or better than you. Never try to be. I've always said that I'm very grateful that I'm never the best player in my band, in whatever band I'm in. Like I'm never the best musician, because because if you can look around confidently and go, oh yeah, I'm the best person, you're in the wrong room. And that's good in life anywhere. Like I'm thrilled in my non-music life that I walk into a room and I'm like, I have a bunch of friends that are, college professors and writers and, I have friends that are like philosophers and I'm just like, how the hell did you guys let me in? Like, why am I allowed in this room? And as far as when you're booking shows, the two things that I would say, and again, these are very like mundane, blue collar piece of advice, are three. Actually, I'll give three. Respond to your emails quickly and directly. Like if somebody emails you about something, don't make them wait a week. Like it takes 5 minutes to write an email. Get all your details straight. So like, what time are doors? What time do we need to load in? What's payout? What's the room fee? What's the age limit? What's my set time? How much set time do you need from me? Like all of these things. Am I allowed to play covers? There have been places that I've shown up and, generally, I mean, even in my last band, we played an old traditional song and I remember showing up. There were a couple places that we showed up where they're like, oh yeah, no, we don't have a BMI or ASCAP agreement. You can't play that. And I'm like, it's literally a song from the 1800s. I'm allowed to play that song wherever I damn well please. Like, there's no writer to claim credit for it. It's public domain. But,
Wow.
make sure you find that out. And the other one is, don't take shit from people. Like, there's going to be people that are going to show up and they're going to try to push and push and push and see what they can get out of you in terms of, oh, you should just show up and play for free. And then, if we like you, we'll book you again. No, it cost me gas to get to the venue. It's, you're paying for my valuable time knowing this set backwards and forwards. You'll get people that book pay to play gigs and fuck pay to play gigs. Cause if those bands, never take them. If those bands were that big a deal, they wouldn't need some local band to sell 75 tickets to cover their guarantee.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get and you get no cachet off of it. The best advice I got early on from a buddy of mine, I'm just gonna keep name dropping my friends' bands so that people check them out too. My friend
Nothing
Jim.
wrong with that.
Yeah, my friend Jim Chilson from, at the time he was in a band called the 10-Foot Polecats, and now he's in a band called Helen and the Trash Pandas. Phenomenal blues guitarist. Another guy who really set me on the path that I'm on now. And really early on, Jim took me to the side because we were talking about, writing bios and things. And he goes, all right. He goes, kid, I'm gonna give you a piece of advice. He goes, you know how you see like those words shared the stage with, band X, Y, and Z? He goes, my booking agent told me this once. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. He goes, and you see that phrase and you know that it's a band that you shouldn't take seriously. Like nobody cares. Like nobody's gonna care that you opened for, an incarnation of the Misfits. But and the only people I've ever had tell me that, oh, you need to take pay-to-play gigs are pay-to-play promoters and the bands that take those gigs. I literally had instances where I was signed to an indie label and I was touring the country and I had people look me in the eye at shows and go, well, if you're not taking these types of shows where you're selling, 75 tickets to open for Trapped, you're not taking your life very serious. You're not taking music very seriously. And I'm like, I guarantee you I'm taking music very seriously by not ever endeavoring to open for Trapped. And this is before, Chris Brown, whatever his name is, went, round the bend in the past couple years.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that would be it. It's, be willing to be very bad at it for a bit and get that out of the way. Because the more you practice and the more you work, learning your instrument and learning songwriting, the quicker that awkward stage passes. Play with people that are better than you. Don't be afraid to be bad. Don't be afraid to try out a bad idea in a private setting with your bandmates. Like, and then, make sure that, you've got your game tight on knowing all the details of the gigs you take. Where do you need to be? What time do you need to be there? How much are you getting paid? All of these things. And then just, don't take crap from people, basically.
I will add, as it did, it's gonna sound like I'm biased because I'm a teacher and I learned all of this stuff, but like, listen to classical music. You don't have to imitate it. Every single chord progression you have ever heard of is in classical music. If you want to listen to different ways it can be put together, it's there. And also, if you're sitting there going like, oh, classical music is stupid, you're stupid. That's the original.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the things that get...
People think I'm the weird one.
No, I think people, people want to try to change the wheel, and obviously it's cool to do different things, but like you said, there's only so many notes and, melodies that are out there, and it all probably stems back from that era.
Well, I mean, in the Western canon, certainly.
Well, yes. Yeah. In the Eastern, a great way to get interesting things that are not written by mostly dead white old men, admittedly, is to do Eastern, because Eastern music has completely different scales.
That's an interesting point. It's like a totally different... Everything was so separate because of, lack of transportation and other cultural reasons. So yeah, it's definitely going to be very vastly different than that whole European, like you said, Caucasian presence.
Like the classical base in both Western society and Eastern society are so integral to like understanding the different ways you can use everything. I've never understood a band that can go like, well, I hate classical music. I don't listen to that. I just do chords together. Like, but that's what they did.
Yeah. Also, like, straight up, some classical composers, I mean, just composers in general, I have just the utmost respect for composers, because that's an amazing art to be able to do. I'm trying to slowly... So here's my other plug, by the way. There is one other release that Phantom Motion has coming out this year.
Okay, yep.
And it is, we filmed with our friend Cam C. Slack a short silent horror film called The Spectre. And Cam was cool enough to also let us do the score for it, because I asked him. And so we are working on that. I don't have a firm date on when that's going to be out yet, but that is very, very cool, and it is a very different thing to be doing. I feel like Danny Elfman sometimes, not in the having talent for it, but in just this is so much fun to do.
Right.
And it's just such a different world, and you learn so much. And I think that would be the other thing if I were going to just ramble on and be like, here's my last piece of advice, is do stuff that feels weird to you. Do stuff that's not exactly comfortable, like musically, not, go out there and, compromise your morals. Like I said, you will catch me dead before you catch me doing a pay-to-play show. But, I was like, okay, cool. I threw it out to him. I'm like, I'd really like to write the score for this. And he goes, okay, done. And I went, oh, shit.
Like it's actually there. Yeah, you gotta do it now.
What?
Yeah, no. And I'm like, okay, game on. I guess I gotta do this now. I guess I have to sit down and I have to figure this out. And doing that has improved, my songwriting elsewhere. It's improved my songwriting for, just more normal music, normal, but like the stuff that we would play at shows.
Right.
Like going out and, writing just regular, like writing prose, writing poetry, all of those things improve your process. It's all integrated,
Yeah, completely.
No single part of you is separate from the other.
Yeah, no, that damn straight. That's great advice, guys. Because I think it is like you can kind of like some stuff is going to be universal, but then there's stuff that's like you wouldn't have had that without those experiences.
Yeah. Everything that you do, and I mean, this is getting into, weird philosophical stuff, is every single thing that you do, everything that's ever happened to you brings you to who you are today. And I thought about this, one day kind of recently, because we were talking and I went, yeah, if I had taken the scholarship that I was offered to college when I was 17 years old, which was all the way in Alaska.
Wow.
I would not be married to her, and I probably wouldn't be an active musician, because what turned me into a musician was being in Boston and all the experiences that, happened to me in Boston. And maybe I'd be in a similar position. Maybe I wouldn't. You never know.
Right.
I took a different road and it led me here. But, I can certainly look back on those experiences and go, some of those were tough. Some of those were super fun. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be the guy I am right now if it weren't for all of them. Yeah. And you take those experiences and you work them and you take little bits of it and you make art out of that. And hopefully that art helps you survive. It helps you thrive. And in a best case scenario, it helps somebody else, laugh or cry or yell or do something that, makes their life better.
Right. That's so cool. Wow. Yeah, that was great, guys. And we covered so much between, nails and barns. Like there was just a lot, but I think that's what's cool about this. Everyone has a different story. And so I'm really happy that we got to kind of talk about a lot of things that make up you two and make up what Phantom Ocean is and everything.
Same. Thank you so much for having us on, Max.
Of course.
Absolutely fantastic talking to you.
Yeah, so before obviously we'll do the farewells and stuff, where can people learn more about what you guys are, collective, individual, the project with Phantom Ocean, other groups that you're, in hiatus, all that jazz?
Here, if you want to go first, my love.
Oh, why would you make me go first?
Because I've been talking and I monopolized.
Yes, I love it. It's great. Normally, I just kind of go bet. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So for me, if you want to find Phantom Ocean, we're on Bandcamp, phantomocean.bandcamp.com. We're on Instagram at Phantom Ocean Band. We're on Facebook. Just search Phantom Ocean. I think it's also facebook.com Phantom Ocean Band. We're honestly much more active on Instagram because, frankly, Instagram's just more fun.
Mm-hmm.
For live shows with us, again, you can catch us on the 29th in Lebanon, Maine at Charlie's Hill. You can catch us on the 13th of June at Dusk in Providence with Linnea's Garden and Heather Rose and Clover. I'm also excited to announce, I found this out today, that show is being presented by Options Magazine. It is a Pride-centric show. That was kind of the whole point when we booked it, was to book a bunch of bands that were not, basically just a bunch of, straight white dudes.
Right.
So, I'm not, she's not, bunch of people in the other bands aren't. It's a good time. And then we have one more show coming up later in August that we're gonna, announce later because it's also in Providence. So, go follow us on Instagram for clues about what that's gonna be.
Awesome.
As far as finding me online, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, that's where I hang out online. That and making weird appearances on podcasts. That's my online presence mostly.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that works.
Yeah. I did one a couple weeks ago where I talked about yelling at ghosts.
Well, it's funny you say that. A couple of our guys on our network for a different show are going down as we speak to New Jersey because they interviewed somebody who does like exorcisms and stuff, and they're actually going to be doing a vlog of real live exorcism in Asbury Park, New Jersey tomorrow.
Wow.
So yeah. So that'll be interesting. I know we have to like mute certain parts when we re-upload it because if the Latin goes out, you can get some spirits going a little crazy.
Just gonna draw a line in the sand here. Don't read the Latin.
Listen, give me the unmuted Latin. I want to have a party. I got a lot of dead relatives to talk to.
I'll see if I can get the rough cut for you guys before it hits the cutting room floor. But no,
on that note, I'll make sure that I show you after we're done recording the vintage Ouija board we pulled out of a wall.
Right, we were talking about those prior, so yes, I might have to see this now. But yeah, no, that's great, guys. And then yeah, for Sarah, anything for you particular beyond the band for socials or?
For me and my inquiries as a solo person and also a teacher, you can find me at sarahmoughanmusic.com. It looks like an old person did my website because I am an old person on the inside. I am also on Facebook at Sarah. It's just Sarah Moughan. It's a page. And I mean, I'm technically on Twitter, but all I really do is yell at wrestlers on Wednesday nights.
Hey,
Yeah. I mean,
Twitter's great for that.
That's what I do with Twitter.
All I do is try to get Eddie Kingston to talk to me.
I just try to get John Silver to block me by asking why he's up after 9:00.
See, you got goals in life and you just keep at it. And one of those days, you guys should have a rat race. Who gets it first?
Listen, Griff Garrison retweeted me, so I'm ahead of the game. My sweet golden baby boy.
There you go.
I'm gonna have to play dirty. I'm gonna have to call some of my friends and be like, help.
Yeah. I need a plug.
Yeah. Guys, put in a good word for me.
Oh, completely. Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome, guys. Stay in post, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having us, Max.
Oh, anytime. And shout out to our boy Mike Petrano, because if not, we might have this magic.
Oh, no,
yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, you have not had the pleasure of meeting Mike yet. Soon. We'll make a trip up to Vermont.
Yeah, good old Rutland. Come on by.
Yeah. All right.
Well, perfect, guys. Thank you so much. This is Streaming Cassettes on Wingman of the Year. If you want to check us out and learn more, you can go on wingmanoftheyear.com. You get your shows, your blogs, your merch, shirts, the whole nine. We got a bunch of stuff. But guys, this was Drew. This was Sarah. Phantom Ocean. And thank you so much, guys. We're signing out. All right. Peace.